Started on a rigid Harley-Davidson chopper. Little background on myself was I was always the passenger. I was in an accident, and the man that I was with wrecked his bike. They gave me a little insurance check. I bought him a brand new bike, and I asked him what he was going to do with the bike that he had. And he said, if you can put it together, you can have it. So with some of his guy friends in the garage, he decided that they would put a jar up on the workbench, and every time I asked a question, I had to put $1 in the jar. They thought they were going to have a couple grand to go to Bike Week. They only had I think it was $33 or $35. So I managed to pull it off. I went through my trials and tribulations. It was never easy because back then there weren't a lot of women riders. I am a motor maid. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the motor maids. It's the oldest riding club there is, and it's all women. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But when I started out, the reason that I started working on motorcycles was because I was passionate about it. I wanted to learn the mechanical ins and outs of what was going on. And back then it was a little more where the guys weren't so hep to chicks riding. And so if your bike broke down or something happened, you were definitely going to take a Ransom, if not a little more, to get your bike wherever you needed to go to fix it. So, hence, that's how I got into motorcycling. I've probably ridden almost 1 million miles since I started riding. I did a trip in '98 from Fairbanks, Alaska, thank you, to Key West, Florida. That was an incredible journey. And along the way, I did find that how you present yourself out in the world as a woman rider when you need something is very important. When you go into the dealership and you go and you speak to your parts person or your technician, there's men genuinely care about women. That's their job, is they like to help, they like to fix things, they like to do for you. They want to make sure you're always safe, and it's just a thing. It's natural for them. So when you go to a dealership and you have to ask for parts or talk to your technician, the best thing you can do for yourself when you start out is walk up and say, hello, how are you today? And smile, because they want to help you, but again, they're a little reluctant that you know what's going on.
And they smell fear. No.
You're so funny. They smell confidence. Yes, they do. What I tell women all the time is the most important things that you'll need for your motorcycle is your manual, your shop manual. The manual tells you everything that you need to know about your motorcycle. So instead of reading your Cosmo, pick up your manual. Inside the front of your manual, it tells you all your service intervals. It tells you all your critical fasteners that you need to make sure are good and tight to keep you safe on the road. A lot of women like to do stuff themselves. They want to change their oil, they want to change their spark plugs, they want to tune their motorcycles, and so on and so forth. That's really good, and that manual helps you do that. All the instructions are in there. All your specifications are in there. All the things that you need are in that book. So that should be your best friend. The second thing that you need is an air pressure gauge. Tire pressure gauge. Your tires are so important to you on the road. Most people don't pay attention to that. Barometric pressure will determine whether or not you lose air in your tires. We live here in Florida. We have rain some days. We have hot some days. If your bike sits for more than a week, the first thing you should do is get your air pressure gauge and go out and check your tires. If you don't have what we call an air pig, a little tank with air in it, go to the closest gas station and air up your tires. That's going to keep you safe on the road. It's also going to make your tires last longer, and in the long run, you become familiar with your motorcycle.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you guys have seen this, where you get a customer that brings their bike in and they'll be like, I don't know, maybe it's not handling well, the neck bearings are bad, maybe
they got 5 pounds of pressure.
And all of a sudden you say, yeah, well, you're riding around on flat tires.
Exactly. And
check them every time. They'll change.
That's so important. And with regard to when you're riding and you're doing things, a lot of times women are vertically challenged. Not everybody's tall. Motorcycles don't always fit. So if you're a new rider, the first thing that I suggest you do is take your motorcycle safety foundation course. It's imperative. It keeps you safe. It keeps other riders around you safe because you know what you're doing, you're confident, and you can also judge out there who actually is a more acclimated rider and who isn't, so that you know where you want to put yourself when you're riding. So after you take the course, if you don't own a motorcycle and you want to purchase a motorcycle, you'll hear a lot of people tell you, oh, you're a girl, go buy yourself a Sportster and ride it around, you'll be happy. Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. The Sportster is the most top-heavy motorcycle that there is. A lot of men throw them on the ground because they just fall over. They're very top-heavy. They're awkward. If you can ride that, you can ride a full-dressed Harley-Davidson, a full-dressed Victory, Indian, whatever you want. Very important things to know about your motorcycle is leverage points. I don't know how many of you have ever been stuck in the dirt somewhere and you have to get out and there's no way to start your bike and pull up front and drive out on your motorcycle. You have to back your bike out. And for me, myself, I guess I would say I'm a little stubborn, but I don't want anybody to touch my motorcycle. I don't want my husband to go and push my bike for me and help me out. It's not that it's embarrassing, it's just that if I'm riding it, I should be able to handle it. So I'm going to show you a little trick that is actually really cool. If you're on your motorcycle and you have to back up, and I'm going to move this stuff, sorry. We'll get to this stuff in a minute. Okay, so this applies to men too. Ladies aren't the only ones that learn something. So you're on your bike and you're in the dirt and you can't back it up and you're going and you're going and you're going. If you take your hand and you stick it under the gas tank and you pull while you back up, your motorcycle will roll like a dream and you will not be stuck. It's called leverage. It's a leverage point, okay? Also, I'm sure you've seen a lot of demonstrations where they tell you if you drop your bike, how to pick it up, and they tell you that you pick your bike up like this, okay? For me, that doesn't work. I'm not coordinated enough once I get the bike up like this to be able to grab the handlebars and maneuver it. Everybody's different. For me, how I learned, and of course my beautiful custom bike, I'm not going to lay it on the stage, but if the bike is on the ground, and you have to be very careful with this, sometimes it requires a little technique, but if it's laying on the ground, leverage, if you turn the wheel and you push up on the handlebars, now mind you, if you push too hard, your ass is going over tea kettle right over top of that motorcycle, but you get lots of practice picking it up from the other side too.
Yeah, and if you're drinking, that's real easy to do. So don't ever drink and ride or pick up your motorcycle.
So for me, those leverage points work. That's what works for me. When I was starting out,
I'll get to that.
One of my friends said, you know, hey, you could pick it up, you could ride it. Okay. I went to try to pick it up, couldn't get it up, and some guy was coming by and he's like, can I help you? Did you drop your bike? I'm like, I can't get it up. Thinking he'd pick it up, I'd go in the bar and be like, hey, I picked the bike up, I want to take it for a ride now. He came back out and he's like, laid it on the ground, he's like, I want to see you do it. Well, I watched the guy, he turned the wheel and he pushed. I was in, that was it. So it definitely matters what, some aren't very arm strong, like I can't swing from the monkey bars, I fall flat on my face, I just don't have it. Exactly, that's how I feel when I fall off the monkey bars. But
now, somebody online just said that we've had two questions. One is, can you demonstrate that again? Just kind of go back over.
Sure.
The bike's down, it's laying on the ground. What are you going to do again?
Right, you're going to grab the handlebars, you're going to squat, grab the handlebars, you're going to turn the wheel, and you're going to push the leverage with your knees. Okay? For me, some of the demonstrations, like I said, where they pick it up this way, what happens for me is I get my butt on the seat, but yet I'm all discombobulated because you're nervous because you just dropped your bike, you know, so your adrenaline's pumping, and it doesn't always work for everybody. Some girls are really good at it and they're coordinated, but to grab that handlebar and do it sometimes is difficult. So that's the best leverage point for that. And then again with the gas tank when you're backing up.
Because that principle also works if you get on a bike. A lot of people think bikes are too heavy for them to ride because they can't stand it up. Because they get on it and they try to stand it up like this.
Exactly.
And if you turn your bars like this, you can stand it up without even touching the handlebars with your hips.
Exactly.
So it is a good leverage. The other question we got was about how do you determine correct tire pressure?
Okay, correct tire pressure, there's a variable with regard to that. On the sidewall of your tire, they're going to tell you what their tire's rated for. Another thing about tires we'll get to in a minute, but when you're putting air pressure, it'll tell you max capacity, what the manufacturer wants you to run in that tire. For me personally, I go a few pounds under because when you fill it all the way up, your contact patch is there. It's very hard, but you wear your tires a little more. You don't get as many miles out of them. For me, I'm a Metzler head. My husband loves Dunlop. Everybody has a tire that they like, how it sticks, how it grips, how it corners. That's up to you. If you like to have it full of air, you'll notice that your ride is a little difficult. If for some reason it's too bouncy, this is for women, you don't have a bra on that day and they're just jiggling around, you can let a little air out of the tire and you'll be okay. You know what I mean? I like to run my tires at about 32 to 35. That's for me. We're here in Florida again. Everything here is flat. We don't have a lot of rolling hills and mountains and everything like that. Get up into the mountains. You want that stiff tire contact patch so that you're cornering your grips and it helps you move along. But yeah, that's.
So but a good rule of thumb is, whatever the tire manufacturer puts on the side of the tire, if you purchase the tire and it's for that particular model bike, it's going to be hard to go wrong with just reading that number right off the side and going there. When you're buying tires, and you'll probably cover this, when you're buying tires, you're gonna want to know, okay, am I going to be riding two up? Is this tire actually designed for this motorcycle and for the type of riding I'm doing?
Also, it's your tires. Your tires are load rated, okay?
What's that?
So anyways,
I'm right in the middle of work, buddy. I'll talk to you here in a minute.
So your tires have a load rating on them, okay? A lot of people will buy tires, they'll go online or whatnot, and they'll buy the least expensive tires. But what they don't understand is the rating is for the weight of your bike, how you ride it, how many, if you're having a passenger, what capacity you have on it. So you have to make sure your load rating is correct. Most importantly, on a tire, on the sidewall, there's what we call a date code. There's a date that tire was made. It's very imperative that when you buy new tires or that when you're replacing your tires or servicing your tires that you check your date codes, okay? Because what happens is your bike, you'll ride it a couple times, you'll ride it throughout the year, maybe you don't ride so much that year. The sidewalls end up getting dry rotted and your date code determines how long you get if you don't wear the tires out. Not everybody rides 100,000 miles in a year. So when the bikes sit, you want to make sure you pay attention to your date codes. But when you buy tires, the most important thing you can check is your date codes. Make sure you're getting fresh rubber and it's going to carry you down the road and continue to be safe.
Not all tires are equal. Sometimes because you're getting a good deal on a tire, it's because they're out of date and somebody got them cheap. You'll also want to check, how you store your tires. You don't want to store your tires like near your compressor and your mechanical equipment. There's little things. So get to know tires, but don't buy tires just because they're cheap, because you've only got two things between you and the road, and they're called tires. Yeah,
that's it, exactly. So some of the other things that I wanted to touch on about your motorcycle, again, finding the right technician. Everybody likes to do stuff themselves. I personally, I have a lot of female customers. They come and they buy their oil, their filters, their batteries, certain things like that from me, and then they do the work themselves. I'm all for that. I think that's super cool. Again, your manual inside tells you everything you need to know to do those things. And it familiarizes you with your motorcycle so that when you're washing your bike or you're waxing it, you see something loose, hey, this is a critical fastener. I've seen that in my manual. Let me go to my toolbox and get a wrench, tighten that up. And then you can even refer in the manual, and if it's something that it'll say next to the critical fastener, a torque spec. If you know enough to get a torque wrench and torque it. If not, building your relationship with a technician is the most important thing you can do. If your guy does your motorcycle for you, cool. At some point, everybody has to say, listen, this isn't what I do. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to take your appendix out right here in the parking lot. You know what I mean?
Unless you make her really angry.
Yeah, right. You're funny. So with regard to that, you have to find the right technician. When you go to a dealer or a shop, it's not for everyone. And a lot of times what women especially don't understand is that we speak a totally different language than guys. Guys are very linear and we're very emotional. That's just how we are. We take things personal. It's genetically inside of us. We do our best not to, but it happens. So when you're looking for the right person to work on your motorcycle, you have to have a good rapport. Again, it starts with a big smile. Hi, hello, how are you? If you come home to your husband and you say, hi, honey, how was your day? Even if you had a shitty day, he's going to say, good, babe, thanks, I love you. If you say, hey, what the hell, where's the milk? You were supposed to bring it home. He's going to look at you and go, what the hell is wrong with you, you know? It's the same thing backwards. You have to have that rapport. Parts especially, when women go to buy parts, again, back where I was saying, men want to help fix everything. So you will inevitably go to a parts store, say, hey, I need a jet for my S&S carburetor, or I need this set of spark plugs, and they say to you, how do you know that's what you need? Listen here, sweetie, how do you know? Don't take it personal. It's not meant or directed to you like that. They're trying to be polite because the guy that comes up to the parts counter and says that, they're going to say, oh, well, what do you ride? And they're going to reaffirm everything that guy is going to tell them about their bike. I ride a Dyna, I need this. And he's going to confirm that he needs those spark plugs or he needs that oil filter or, you know. So women can't take it personally. And then when you find a technician, you have to learn to communicate with the right person. Not every technician is going to understand what you say. When you say, like for me, when I work in the shop with my husband, I'll say, honey, I need that drill bit out of your toolbox. You know, the little steppy dude that goes into the fender when I'm drilling a hole. And he looks at me and goes, oh, the unibit, honey. Okay, here you go. All right, well, that's because he kind of speaks girl. He gets it. So when your technician doesn't understand you, when you say, well, it kind of goes like this, or I got a little like that, they're not getting your point because, again, not necessarily are you familiar with what's going on with your bike in order to say, hey, listen, the back wheel's coming out a little bit, or I get a little stutter here when I throttle on, or, you know what I mean? So you will find the right person that you can talk to, and it does sometimes take a few technicians to get to that point. But once you find them, keep them. It's like a good man that you marry. You never want to get rid of him because he's always going to keep you safe. I tell everybody, you can honestly work on a car, leave one bolt out of a car, and go 10 years and never know. You leave one bolt out of a motorcycle, and you can end up dead.
Chris wants to borrow us here for a second.
Oh, yeah.
We got Chris back here. This is a bike we're building for Progressive Motorcycle Insurance, Grease and Gears Garages. We're building it over 4
on my pink shirt
events that we're doing.
I'm going to borrow Athena's mic for a minute. So one of the things that's a crapshoot whenever you're buying a donor bike, I mean, you can get it started, you can get it running, make sure that everything's like that, but you're never really sure until you get into it what you're going to find. What we were so pleased to see once we got our carburetor off is looking inside of these heads. Man, everything's clean. We had a light down in there. You know, this is apparently this 1250 kit that was done on this 883 was done not that long ago. So, you know, of course, we're still going to take the top end off and freshen it, but from what it looks like already, we got a good motorcycle that we're not going to have a lot of work to do.
These guys down here at this table are from Gainesville Harley-Davidson. They work with my brother. And this donor bike is one of those bikes that I picked up the other day from you guys. So thank you guys. This thing is really in good shape. One of you guys should have probably grabbed this one.
All right. I'm going to get back to talking about motorcycles. I was telling everybody that, you know, when you take your motorcycle safety foundation and you're not sure what you want to ride, I always suggest to everybody that they go to a rental facility, a dealership that has rentals where they maintain them and they keep them in good condition. And you go and you try different models of motorcycles. You rent them for the weekend. If you drop them, they're rentals. You paid for the insurance. It's not your own stuff. You don't have to fix it right away. But you get the feel of the different models and the things that you like. Don't stick yourself on something because someone told you that's what you should ride. It's all about you. Now, Some, like I said, some women are vertically challenged. Some girls are taller like me where they can pretty much maneuver just about anything. For the shorter girls, what we do is we put them on a motorcycle. We get them to the point where they can touch the ground. I've had some that they end up on their tippy toes. And what I do for them is I lower the bikes. I cut some out of the seat so that it brings them closer to the ground. I do those things, and it's called custom fit. You can have a seat guy, an upholstery guy do that for you, and it's going to help your confidence. It's going to help your riding. It's going to help how you handle your motorcycle, whether you're driving it or you're rolling around in a parking lot. So always remember that. And it doesn't have to be a Harley. It can be an Indy. Everybody rents motorcycles. So go ahead and spend the money and spend the time to find what you want before you go make a $30,000 investment and end up unhappy and say, wow, why did I buy this Sportster when I really wanted a Road King? Or why did I buy this Road King when I really wanted a Sportster? So that's the best advice I can give with regard to that. As far as maintenance goes with your motorcycle, maintenance is key. If you keep your motorcycle maintained, you keep your oils and your fluids and everything up to date, and you stay with your service intervals, you will get so many miles out of your motorcycle and you'll always enjoy it. The hardest part for me is when I get a customer who, they get a bike and they bought it used and they don't know enough about it, they don't have a good technician, and everything becomes a hassle for them. Then it's no fun anymore, and what they do is they stick it in the garage, they don't ride it anymore. And then it ends up here getting all chopped up on this stage, you know, yeah. He loves that. That's
shove them in the garage, shove them in the garage.
And again, that's a waste of money, and it's unfortunate because then you're turned off by riding, and riding is so awesome because you get to meet people, you get to see things that most people only dream of, and when you know, when you're out on a motorcycle, the smells, smell the orange blossoms, you can smell the city dump, you know, anything that you come across, but that's what it's about. You don't get that in a car, you know, the camaraderie and the respect that comes along. Now, I'm a motor maid. Again, motor maids were established in 1940, sanctioned by the AMA in 1941. I ride with ladies who are 90 years old and will go 1,000-mile day. I want to go to the hotel and put my head under the pillow. They're putting on lipstick and getting ready to go to the bar and have a cocktail. It's crazy. So when I ask those ladies, you know, what was it that kept you going? They tell me stories about how they couldn't go into a dealership. The dealers wouldn't have anything to do with them. The guys were like, no way. They'd take tire spoons and bring their tires and their inner tubes, change them on the side of the road. That's what they did. They had to learn to do that. Well, those ladies now are riding. They can walk up to your bike and say, hey, you know, that's loose, or you should check that, or you should do that. I would like to see all riders be like that, you know. We were talking yesterday about wiring. My bike, if you look at it, you really can't see the wires. They're not internally wired, but they're there. That, for me, is something that I'm very particular about. Some women are very particular about their paint or where their foot pegs are or what style. I tell everyone, function over form. It may look good, but if it doesn't function properly, it's absolutely useless to you. It's useless. So don't waste your money. Make sure that anything you buy for your motorcycle is something that is functional. Anything you want to do to it, trinket-wise and whatnot, that's all cool, but you have to make sure when you put integral parts on your bike that they work for you, like the seats, the foot pegs. Some people need mid-pegs, some need forward controls, seats need to be higher, seats need to be lower. That's stuff that you do, and it fits the bike to you. Then you're comfortable, and what it does is it allows you to be confident, not cocky, because when you get cocky, you get hurt. That's key factor number one. Always be confident, never get cocky. I learned that the hard way. That's I've eaten a few pieces of dirt that way, for sure. Maintenance. Maintenance is a really, really important thing, like I said. A lot of times, your bikes sit, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but you park your bike for, say, about a month. You didn't get a chance to ride it. The grandkids are here. The kids are doing this. You went on vacation, whatnot. Your battery's low. You go to start your bike, and it goes, and it doesn't want to start. Okay, well, there's things these days that you can do to make sure you don't have those issues. Like we have here today, we have the battery tender, okay? And the battery tender is very important because what it does is it trickles power into your battery. It'll do a 2 amp into your battery when you're not riding it. It'll keep the battery hot so that when you do go push the button, again, you're not stuck, it's reliable, you're good to go.
I feel like a flight attendant.
Now, this is the box that you plug in. This end is actually the part that you install in your motorcycle. It goes to the battery leads, and then you leave the plug, and then when you get home, you just plug it into the battery tender, and you're good. So that keeps your battery fresh and hot. Now, when we're talking about batteries, batteries are very important too. Most people don't know, batteries have a memory. Except ion lithium batteries, car batteries, motorcycle batteries, all of it. So when you get a battery out of your dealership and you want to do it yourself, say you go to the auto parts store, they'll look at you and say, okay, and you say, oh, what do I need to do to it? They'll say, oh, it's all charged up and ready to go. That is true to a point. It is dry charged. It is not charged to its maximum capacity, so the memory only allows it to remember where it is. So what you do is you go home, you put it on a charger. This also works with these leads. Always, when you do your battery, you connect the positive cable first to the battery, the plus side, then you put the negative cable on so that you don't spark or arc and cause issues. Yeah, I like this. We could put him on an airplane and no problem. All right, now. So, but when you buy a battery, you charge it up on a trickle charger or a 6 amp charger. You let it go for a half hour, 45 minutes, so that it gets up to a range and it'll remember that. You get longer life out of your battery, you don't have hard starting problems, and you can go and not have an issue. And then if you have the battery tender, again, you're good to go, and you go on and on and on and on. That's just the way it goes.
Now, when your bike, you haven't ridden it about a month, you went over making sure that you check your tire pressure, and now your battery, it's good because you've been able to have it on the tender. What are some other things when you get ready to get on the bike then? What kind of pre-ride checks should people do?
Well, for me personally, I always, got these things here.
Oh, yeah.
I have a garage full of stuff, okay? I live in South Florida. Never put your pool supplies in or near your garage. It will cause corrosion. Most people don't know that, and they're like, why is my bike always rusting? Your pool stuff's right there. You're going to have issues. First thing I do is I always go over and I push on my spark plug wires just to make sure that they're all nice and down and tight and good to go. I walk around. I always look at my motorcycle. This is Rosie. Her name is Rosie Posey Pudding and Pie. Kissed the boys and made them cry, okay? That's just her. That's who she is. I go around and I talk to her. I check and make sure my shifter's not loose. I check my everything. I touch everything. Then, for me, I have a final drive chain. So I will go over here and I will, reach up and I'll feel my chain and I'll say, okay, there's a tight spot or it's too loose, and I know it needs to be serviced. Same thing with a belt. You get, I believe it's like quarter of an inch to of play when it's not in the tight spot. That's acceptable. Anything more than that, slapping around, you need to go ahead and have it serviced. Now, again, with stuff like that, that's not something that I suggest the newer rider or the not mechanically adept person to go ahead and do in their home, because back here, the rear wheel has to be true and straight in line with the frame in order to get you down the road without it being work. You know what I mean? Without rubbing the side of your fender, rubbing your belt, rubbing things. So that's not something I suggest. Sometimes, you need to adjust it. There are adjusters on the back. You can do it. Pull the wheel out a little bit. Get it to where you're going. If you're on the side of the road, stuff slapping all over the place, well, yeah, you take your wrenches out and you go ahead and you just adjust each side evenly and pull it out a little bit and then get to where you need to go. I always check my mirrors, okay? When I start on my bike, I always start my bike. I always turn my headlight, my high beam on, make sure it's there. I always turn my low beam on, make sure it's there. I do my tail light. I step on my brake. I touch my brake. I make sure all my lights are working. That's very important. You want to get out there and somebody smashes into the back of you because your tail light didn't work and you didn't pay attention to it. So that's something that I always look at. For me personally, I go around to the brakes, the brake calipers. I touch the fittings, make sure there's no fluid or anything like that coming out. Because, again, those are things as you ride, those things are going to happen. You're going to get normal wear and tear. So if you're constantly touching and feeling, which us girls, we love the touchy-feely stuff, in the stores, in the parking lot, we don't care. We'll touch it all. I always pull in my clutch, make sure, you know, sometimes like you can WD-40 your clutch cable. It's very simple. The book shows you how to lube it, not a problem. You pull it out, squirt a little WD-40 in there, get it going, keep it going. Keeps it easier on your hand, you know. Me, this is my first hand clutch ever. I just rebuilt this bike. I was a jockey shift girl, rode a foot clutch forever. I still get yelled at because I'll sit at a light and go to step on my clutch and the whole bike lurches because my husband will go, the clutch is up there, honey. Yes, I know. And then, of course, before you take off, the most important thing you can't forget is to open that gas cap and look in there. Some of the newer bikes have fuel gauges. At some point, your fuel gauge is going to fail you. Always open the cap. Look in. See what you got. Don't hesitate because, again, you're going to go on a ride. The last thing you want to do is have to put it on reserve, find a gas station. Those are really common things.
One good way when you're doing this, too, you know, if your bike's been sitting or you haven't been for a ride, if you just go over it with a towel, like to wipe it down, you can be doing this the whole time while you're wiping a bike down, too, because then you're touching everything.
Everything, and you see anything and everything that's loose,
you know, you don't
attention.
have to be a mechanic to do this. All you have to be is, you know, if anything's loose on your motorcycle, you know, that's not supposed to be loose. And if you're wiping your bike down already or you're washing it and taking care of it, those are great opportunities just to be checking out your bike overall.
And I suggest that once a week, whether it needs it or not.
That's where you're going to see if a little oil's weeping. You know, pay attention underneath your bike. If there's a little drip someplace, it's not supposed to be there. So, you know, check that out too.
Now, if you ride an older bike, like this bike, older bikes, you'll get a little what we call weep between gasket surfaces. Don't freak out about that. I mean, if it's coming out and it's heavy, yes, that's something you need to address right away. Older bikes, you'll get a little weepy here or there. Again, if you ride like an older Evo or a shovelhead or anything like that, you'll get on your bike and say it's a bike that was your husband's and he gave it to you, you went and bought a new bike. He's not home, you go start it up, it's been sitting a month, you start it, all of a sudden you walk over and you're getting ready to touchy-feely and all that, and you see a puddle under there. Well, there's a breather in this motor, and what happens is the bottom end sits, and you'll get oil in the crankcase, and it'll puke some out. A couple tablespoons, nothing to panic about. That's just very common nature of the beast. A lot of things I like to suggest for any rider is to absolutely pay attention to, like Pat said, wash your bike, do whatever, but you know, all your fuel tank bolts and things of that nature, it's important because you hear a little rattle on the side of the road, you're not sure what it is, start touching. Don't be afraid, touch it. You need to talk to her. For me, motorcycles have their own personality. My bike will tell me when something's wrong. I will do something and go to put a screw in or whatever and it won't go. I stop. And that's the hardest thing I think for a lot of women riders to do is you want to know what's going on. The biggest thing you can do is stop, take a moment, look at everything else because something else may be going on and she's trying to tell you, listen, fool, you need to do this. That's why I'm not being agreeable. I know it sounds a little crazy, but it absolutely is true.
And eventually you'll learn the difference between a noise and a sound.
Right.
Machines make sounds naturally. When there's a noise, it means you need to investigate that a little more.
Yes.
And so particularly, you know, we're a Harley dominant crowd, you know, at most rallies. But all bikes have noises and sounds. The noises we need to address. The sounds, it's part of the music. As Bill Dodd said the other day, that's the music of the motorcycle, you know. But noises you need to address.
Right. And like a lot of things that are very uncommon to all riders, the newer bikes, like the older bikes you can talk to somebody and they'll say, oh, that's common. That's very common in that model, common in that model, common in that model. The newer bikes, they came out with the twin cam motors, and what a lot of people don't get explained to them is the fact that their service intervals are what they are and they go a longer range, but you have major service intervals with those bikes where we don't have them with the older bikes. Like with a twin cam motorcycle, you have cam chains and tensioners inside your cam chest, which is on the other side of a bike. At 25, 30, 35,000 miles, all that needs to be replaced. There are little plastic pieces in there. They can break off, get into the oil pump. A lot of places don't tell you that. Your book tells you that. Your service manual you read that, and you know that's something that you need to address at a certain mile period for your motorcycle. And again, if you read the book and you do what you can do, then you find that person that works with you and says, okay, you say, that's my guy. Then you call him. And the one thing I tell you about having a technician is in the middle of the day, they're working their ass off. So the best thing you can do is call them in the morning with your questions, call them at the end of the day with your questions. If you want to ask a question in the middle of the day, leave a message and ask them to call you back. Please, whatever you do, don't call every 10 minutes. Oh, what about this, and what about that, and what about that? Because there's only an 8-hour day for that technician. They have all those bikes, and they'd love to answer your questions, but they can't stop what they're doing to do that. That will cause frustration, and that will also diminish your rapport with your technician. It's very important that you don't do that. Not that it's intentional. You don't think about it. You think, oh, I got a question. Let me call him up. Well, it's 1 o'clock, you know. Oh, well, he's got 6 bikes, 6 different lifts going. He's dropping fluids, doing this, doing that. His guy's changing the tires. They don't have time to stop. So if you can ask your questions in the morning or in the afternoon, or leave a message and ask them to call you back, it's like a doctor. They are the doctors of motorcycles. So same thing, you don't call your doctor, your primary care guy, and say, hey, I need to talk to the doctor right now in the middle of all his appointments. You leave a message, they call you back. So that's greatly appreciated from this side of maintaining and working on motorcycles. If you keep that in mind, you always have a great rapport with your technician. So that's something really good. Anybody got any questions? Anything? Nothing? What kind of spark plugs you run in that thing?
I don't even have one.
That's funny. So that's something we're going to talk about next. Spark plugs. Okay. So spark plugs. You have a question?
Is that rear wheel, is that a flat track motorcycle wheel?
That's a Harley Davidson mag wheel.
That's a stock front.
It looks like a flat track.
It's a front wheel on the rear.
Stock front
It's a
wheel.
little taller. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, okay, spark plugs. Spark plugs need to be gapped correctly, okay? They sell a little tool in the auto parts store. Keep it on your key ring. Some motorcycle shops give them out. The gap specs are in your manual. Again, back to that manual. Everything is in there. When you change your spark plugs, you have to gap them correctly. Otherwise, they don't run properly. When you install your spark plugs, you put what we call anti-seize on the threads, never on the electrode. Thank you. I needed that. A little brain fart there. Never on the electrode, always. But what that does is when you put the spark plug in, it allows it to be lubricated, and then when you go to take it out, it doesn't build corrosion and whatnot, because spark plugs go a long time. If you foul a spark plug or you have an issue, you're going to see, like on your spark plugs, you can look at your plug and you can see what we see, and I didn't bring any slides, but your spark plugs are always, if they're running correctly, they're this nice cream color on the electrodes, and they're both the same. If you find that one isn't, one's darker and one's cream colored, you have an issue. Could be intake seals, manifold seals, certain things that your technician will look for. But then that also says to you, hey, let me go to my technician and see what he says about that. Let's see, there's a couple other things that I was going to talk about. Love bugs. There's love bugs flying around everywhere. This must be the love place of the world.
Heather has asked me in my ear, talk a little bit about hand controls and what you can do, because a lot of times women's hands are smaller as well.
So that's a great question because, okay, when I get people that are new riders, they get their first bike, they come to me and they're like, oh, look, I got my bike, and they ride it around. They just ride it. It comes straight out of the box. All this stuff moves. Everything is adjustable to you. Your foot controls, there's spline shafts. I can make the shifter smaller so it fits your smaller boot where you don't have to hike your leg up every time you're shifting. where a man's boot fits right in there and he just shifts, not a problem. Hand controls, you always want to make sure that your hands are level to the point and they're comfortable and you can squeeze. Now, these levers, these are J-brake controls. These are the thin levers. These work really good for smaller hands. You know, my husband, he's 6'4". They're monstrous. He can squeeze anything. It's not a problem. Keeping that cable lubed and then putting your hand controls where you're best fitted for them. And again, when you're seating position on your bike, when you're sitting on your bike and you're actually sitting there, you don't want your hands bent over like this, and you don't want your hands bent backwards like this. It doesn't allow for you to grip the levers correctly. So you want to make sure that when you put your palms down that your fingers are flat, okay? Now the bars move too. You don't have to have it in a stock position. You can bring them closer, you can push them out. If you like your bars forward, what I tell a lot of women especially is sometimes a bar forward will provide better leverage for you to maneuver that bike's front end. But what they find is now they can't really reach. They have to sit forward. Well, that's where you go to your seat guy and he pulls a little bit of your seat back and he adds a little foam right here and he pushes you forward. Same thing to get to your controls. It's not an issue. Takes about 30 minutes, costs you about $40. It's the biggest fix there is. And again, it provides you with confidence to go ahead and move up and down the road and not be reluctant to take corners or put your feet down, or, you know, because you need that confidence to keep going. You can hurt someone if you lack the confidence and you're in a pack of motorcycles and you react a certain way because you aren't confident enough. Someone else around you can get hurt. You can hurt them. So you got to keep that in mind. Let's see. Another thing here. We only probably got a few minutes left. Hey.
I'm just saying goodbye. Bill God is just getting ready to take off and go back to
one of the best human beings in the
Daytona right there,
world.
Bling Cycles.
Back to work.
Back to work. Crack the whip. So you're Chickie.
Be careful.
I can't wait to meet her.
Oh, you'll love
All right. I know. I'm looking forward
Take
to
it easy, brother. Thank you. Love you.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about brakes. Brakes are very important as well. For me personally, I like to make sure that when I go, I can stop. When you take the course, they're going to teach you how to properly use the brakes. When I started riding, I never had a front brake. I only had a rear brake. I've slid across the ground. I got a dual disc front end the first time and stabbed the brakes and threw myself right over the handlebars. So it's good to take the course and make sure that you're familiar with all the things. Brakes, like this motorcycle, I have discs on each side. That's a dual disc front end. That's twice the stopping power. I have a disc on the rear. That allows me to be able to use both. And what it does is correctly, nowadays they have ABS on bikes where it actually will not allow you to lock up the brakes and you can maneuver. But if you actually take the course, they show you how to brake properly, and then you don't have to worry about, you know, stopping fast or, you know, ending up on the ground because you didn't use the brakes correctly. Let's see, a couple other things. Any of you ladies that ride, anybody have a Kickstarter on their motorcycle?
Most of these guys don't have a Kickstarter on their motorcycle.
Oh,
What are you
okay.
talking about?
Well, Kickstarter was a wonderful thing, and if you don't have one, I suggest you always keep a good friend around that doesn't smoke, that can push. Just so you know, that's pretty much that. Too, and at a lot of my Chicks Rule, Boyz Drool, I do them at different places around the country. I like to talk about community involvement. As a woman, women are very caring, nurturing, loving. In order to spread the word out there about how wonderful motorcyclists are, get involved in your community. Take the time to go to the Boys and Girls Club, ride up on your motorcycle, pull up, buy a couple pizzas, have them sent over, go talk to these little kids, little girls, see you pull up on their motorcycle, and they're just like enamored, and they're like, wow, that's the only way we're going to keep everything moving forward. And all you have to do is touch one child's life, and it changes forever. They have a hard childhood, a hard life. This is the place for them. The camaraderie, the respect, and the love that comes along from the person, this guy right here that I never met before. I'll talk to him for 20 minutes and we could be best friends for the next 20 years. That doesn't happen everywhere in the world. Most of the world moves too fast for that. So I suggest everybody take one moment of your life. It doesn't have to be every day, every week, even if it's just once. Go to a Boys and Girls Club, go to a veterans hospital, pull up on your bike, bring those guys out, let them sit on your bike and sit and listen to the stories that they tell you about when they had their panhead or their knucklehead. Watch them light up inside. Feel good about it because that's what we do. That's why we do what we do here. That's why we build motorcycles. That's why we ride motorcycles. And you don't even really realize it until you do it once. Everything in the world slows down and you have this inner peace about you and you know that you might have touched one person's life. That's the best thing that I could ask anybody that's here or watching to do. It's important. The biker community is one of the most, I would say, eccentric, eclectic, and kind community that you'll ever find in the world. Most people ride by motorcycles, and nowadays, like when I started riding, I mean, they used to lock their doors, ride through the red lights to get away from me. I mean, I'd get pulled over by a cop, and I'd take my helmet off, and he'd be like, listen here, sweetie, you were speeding, and what are you doing riding that thing, you know? Times have changed now. Judges, doctors, lawyers, they all ride motorcycles. Time moves really fast, but they don't understand our community and what we do. You can touch someone's life by taking a minute out, like I said, visit someone. All you have to do is ride up on your motorcycle. You ever notice when you ride up to the gas station, somebody will come over and go, wow, cool bike. And you're like, yeah, okay, thanks, and you go get your gas. Stop for 2 minutes. Talk to that person. Talk to them because you never know. That might be the guy that you see a year later just went and bought himself a motorcycle because he talked to you, he thought you were so cool, and he wanted to enjoy what you enjoy and be part of what we do and who we are.
Yeah, because we wouldn't trade it for the world.
Not at all.
Well, Athena, you've done a great job, and I thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Again, it's Athena Ransom, Vagabond.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah,
My
so
pleasure.
thank you so much. I'm going to bring Chris up here and RJ Powell and Mark Perchetti up here. Yes.
What year's the FL?
78.
Go ahead. Tell them about it.
It's 1978 FLH. Actually, now it's a 2017 after my accident, but it has dual disc floating rotors on the front. It's got a 99 FLT floating rotor on the back. I have a Dyna battery, Dyna struts, all the things you can't do to an FL isn't in my vocabulary. Stock 74, reliable, down the road, the next 20 years, I'm good to go. Thank you very much. I love her.
Oh, you just hand that to Chris right there. Thank you.
So
Athena.
listen, being a shovelhead guy myself, I got to tell you, stock 74 is reliable, but ladies love 80s. Let's face it. You know what I'm saying? Right? Ladies love 80s.
I'll go with that.
All right, man. So we are Grease and Gears Garage. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Leesburg, you've been great. We're going to make a couple honorary garage
Ladies and
members.
gentlemen, gather around for a unique look into the world of custom.
Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you, Progressive Motorcycle Insurance, for bringing us out to Leesburg.
Oh, I can't believe I got that on the top of that tent.
You're going to make that guy get up and walk all the way. It's on the other side of the trash can.
Do me the one favor, if you guys would. If you enjoyed this a little bit, go home, check us out on Cycle Source Magazine Facebook. Share those videos. Share this experience. We're going all over the country this year with Progressive, and they're nice enough to set us up in front of all you great people and have a good time doing what we do. So keep it going. Share those videos with your friends, and we'll help get the word out there that custom motorcycling and people putting their hands on machines is still alive and well.
That's it. Now, one of the big things that we did on the stage this week, this weekend at this event, is Progressive Motorcycle Insurance also asked Grease and Gears Garage to build them a custom motorcycle. They had a specific style motorcycle that they were looking for. So on the way here, I bought a motorcycle.
I drew up a design.
And we decided we would start building a motorcycle here.
He grabbed one wheel. He grabbed another one.
Yep, and then we threw this thing. We just got it off my trailer yesterday. We put it up here on the stage, and we
Rode it.
Well, I rode it over here off from the parking lot over there. I rode it over, and this was a riding 2001 Harley-Davidson Sportster 883.
Which, this is Sunday, and brother and sister, if I can preach to you for just a minute, was the dirtiest motorcycle I ever put my hands on in my life. As far as maintenance, they might have taken care of this thing, but nobody ever put a hose.
Nobody put a hose, and it had oil on it and stuff. And then I rode it over here in the sand, and it matted to
Sand
it.
and oil.
But there's no rust on that motorcycle at all.
That was awesome.
Yeah, but some good thing. You know, we bought this bike, and now we're building it. They gave us some design cues. They wanted it to have front and rear suspension. We're chopper guys. Everything we do is a rigid frame. One of the reasons everything we do is a rigid frame is because we have buddies that make rigid frames. We don't have a lot of buddies that make suspension, but now
Mike Alex from Suspension Technologies.
Mike Alex, Suspension Technologies, and eventually we're going to bug him enough. He might not be our friend. But so anyway, he's given us some drop-in cartridges that Suspension Technology does. It's a Florida company, Yelvington design, just south of Tampa. So he's given us those. He worked with NASCAR and dragsters and everything, so he's a suspension guru. He's developing a set of drop-in cartridges for us. These are this is their rear shock suspension system on here. Great suspension.
And listen, all joking aside, we do a lot of hardtail stuff, but we do a lot of all motorcycle stuff. And Mike is actually in the process. We're taking a bike to Bonneville this year that we built on the IMS tour. Mike is actually setting up the whole suspension for us to race at Bonneville. His stuff is track proven. It's in the real world. It's worth the time of looking.
It's good stuff. It's not one of the companies because it's not as old that you'll see around a lot. But check it out, Suspension Technologies. So anyway, this bike, they gave us some parameters. They were kind of looking for a flat track thing. They were looking for a bike that's light and nimble, that's going to handle really well. Athena mentioned it earlier. Sportsters sit up a little higher. You know, and so the lower you can get your center of gravity, you know, you can throw stuff around.
The more groovy it is.
It's the more groovy.
The more groovy.
And you can roll like this, you know, very sexy and suave and posh. But anyway, so part of the design here is, I think we can throw it up on the screen, can't we?
Yeah.
That's
magic.
Poof.
Probably didn't work.
But anyway, so we disassembled this. Chris, walk us kind of through what we've done to the bike so far, though.
Well, so far, man, it's just easy tricks, other than the fact that by hand, Bill Dodge shaved those legs down. That's a stock set of legs that he, by hand up here on stage, took them down there ready for the polisher. We got a match set of 19-inch wheels. We'll take these home, obviously. We're going to drill and tap them to accept a sprocket because we're going to convert this over to chain. Already has the 1250 kit on it. We can tell on initial inspection. Motor looks pretty good. We're still going to top end it, which means we'll pull the heads, make sure that we're good on the inside of the cylinders. If there's no real apparent top end damage to the cylinders and the pistons, we'll probably just let that float. New gaskets everywhere. We've gone through the primary inspection. It has the 1250, from Screaming Eagle.
Screaming Eagle,
We lucked out on that because over the phone we were buying an 883.
Yeah.
And when we got the bike,
we bought this bike from my brother who's over at Gainesville Harley-Davidson. They had it. It was a little rough for them to try to do anything with and put out. And so he said, my brother's a finance guy. He's just looking at it, and he just knows the number, right? So I go and pick it up, and I call Chris, and I'm like, dude, this thing's got a 1250 Screaming Eagle kit on it, nice carburetor, so it's good to go.
So on the other side of the stage, we're also working on the Twisted T bike. The Twisted T tracker is going to be available. If you go to Twisted T's website, they're giving this bike away this year. Go there, sign up, it's free. We're going to have a couple more segments on this with Grease and Gears Garage till we get it out to paint and it's finished. That thing is going to be all over the country with Billy and the Twisted T girls. Some really special things happened here this weekend. Barry Wardlaw from Accurate Engineering was on this stage in front of God and everyone, tearing down a 1949 panhead motor. At the same time, Bill Dodge from Bling Cycles was in the back corner shaving legs. Athena was up here helping Bill and Barry. We were over in the corner doing seat pans. It was a magical time because when you come to the motorcycle rally, it's kind of a celebration of everything that we did at the garage to get here. So having Progressive bring the garage here and let us have that same atmosphere that we can all hang out here, man. It's a great time, and we get to bring our friends
Well,
here.
and it was a big thrill for me because I'm a one-man show at Sin Central Garage, right? So I got Barry Wardlaw up here. I got Chris Callen and Mark from Flat Broke Chops and Rods. I got R.J. Powell and Athena, or Vagabond and Cutthroat Customs. I always say it's Cutting Edge Customs. I always joke with Cutthroat Customs. But anyway, so I'm up here, right? I'm the only one really with a microphone. So I'm calling them up here, just having them show me what they do, and then I can say, now get back to work. So if I felt like I had a shop full that I was in charge of.
Foreman.
I was a foreman. Oh, Diesel's going to be mad. I got my foreman's Diesel, the shop foreman, my boxer. He's going to be pissed if I take that title. But no, it really was a thrilling weekend. Couldn't have done it without Progressive Motorcycle Insurance. We also want to point out they're giving away a 2018 Indian Scout. So keep up with us, Facebook Live, folks.
Also free to sign up for.
Free to sign up for. You can sign up for it free here, everybody here at Leesburg. Facebook Live. Keep checking back with us. We're going to figure out a way for you guys to be able to get in on that giveaway bike, too, out there in the internet world. Castrol Oil is a partner with Progressive Motorcycle Insurance. They've been gracious enough to also be a part of bringing us here, so thanks so much. Want to thank these sound guys down here.
Yep.
Always. And the guys, we never thank them, but the guys that are picking up the garbage every place around the rallies, if you guys
Keeping
are ever
this
at an
place
event, I don't
looking
care
good.
if it's a motorcycle event, a concert, or whatever, make sure that you thank them. They keep it clean so that we can all enjoy it. So thank
And
you
so
guys.
that we can come back.
So we can come back. And thank you, Leesburg Bikefest, so much.
Right on, man. So on behalf of Mark, RJ, Athena, Pat, and myself, this has been Grease and Gears Garage, Leesburg edition. We'll see you guys in Ohio, our next stop.
Namaste.
Ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a unique look into the world of custom motorcycling. We've gathered some of the industry's top builders and fabricators on this stage to show you their skills live and in person. Watch as they chop, grind, and weld their creations into existence right before your very eyes. Feel free to ask questions at any time directly to your host, Pat Jansen. The doors to the shop are open, so pull up a stool, kick back, and welcome to the Grease and Gears Garage.